It's always a pleasure to be here with you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the African Podcast TV. This podcast is about Africa regarding the political side, the historical side, the cultural side, so many more. Each week, I deliver my best thoughts and analysis regarding Africa. Here, your host, Amaduba. Join me to welcome Madam MacDella Cooper. She is a political leader for the movement of One Liberia. Thank you so much, Madam, for joining me this weekend on African View Deba.
It's wonderful to be here with you, and I'm happy at this invitation.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, can you tell us more about yourself?
Oh, wow. That's always a rather challenging question for me because I wear so many different hats, and I guess your show is a political show, so I have to talk about my political life. Well, I'm MacDella Cooper from Liberia, and as you mentioned,
Mhm.
I am a philanthropist, a politician, and a human rights activist. And I'm the political leader for the Movement for One Liberia, which is the first political party in Liberia, political movement that was established by a female politician. We have about 26 political parties, and all of them were started by colleagues, or the male and men.
Mhm.
But I took it upon myself to start the first political party
Mhm.
for women because it was very important to me to see women participating in Liberia's body politics.
Yes.
And my philanthropy side, I've been engaging in helping provide education opportunities for young people, as well as the women, empowering women economically, and also fighting to protect our children and our girls in society. So I fight for human rights for everyone because I believe with human rights, respect for human rights, we can empower our people mentally, spiritually, and morally to stand up for themselves.
Thank you.
So
That's
I think in a nutshell, that's me.
okay. That's really interesting. You say something really interesting talking about fighting for the Liberian people, especially your movement. That's one of the first movement in Liberia. So this that's really important. So let's talk about politics again. So what is the reason exactly you want to do politics, and how do you see politics? How do you see women in politics, especially in Liberia?
Well, considering the fact that we were the first country on the continent to elect democratically elect a woman into the presidency, we're still sort of behind in terms of the numbers we're supposed to have with female participation. And so we're still fighting to get more women into parliament, which is our version of, or we call our version of parliament, the Congress.
Mhm.
And so we have the Senate, our political system is modeled after that of the United States. And so we, uh, we do have three branches of government, and all three branches of government are lacking female participation.
Mhm.
And until women can fully be represented in all branches of government or decision making, whether it's the private sector or the public sector, we are not going to move forward as a nation. So it is very important for me to fight for women's participation,
Mhm.
which is at every level, whether it's in the executive branch, in the judiciary branch, or in the House of Parliament. We have to have women presented everywhere so that women can bring the views of women to the table, the needs of the family to the table, the concerns of the youth to the table, because the mothers are concerned about the needs of the elders, the youth, the men of our society before themselves. And so we need those variation of opinions on every decision making table, especially within our political arena.
Okay, let's talk about your Azanda, something really interesting for the Liberian people because they would like to know your Azanda, what you up to, and what would you like to do for them. So, what is your Azanda, and how do you intend to put that in place?
Well, it's simple. It's very simple. It's Liberia is a very small country, 5 million people.
Mhm.
We are a beautiful country with some of the most incredibly people I've met. I've traveled to many countries around the world, and every country is very unique. And Liberia, in its right, is also very unique. With the right economy, we can move the nation forward. We first have to start by putting money into people's pocket. And
Mhm.
how do we do that? We're not going to go around and give everybody money directly. but you build a good economy, put people back to work.
Mm-hmm.
When people have money in their pocket, they can solve most of their own problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the first thing. Our economy has to work for the Liberian people.
Mm-hmm.
We are a very small market in terms of investment, but our market is also it's also offers a lot of opportunity for investment.
Mm-hmm.
What we as a nation has to sit across the table with every sector, within every sector, and decide what are those things that we can market out there to the rest of the world, to be able to invite investors to come to invest in our into our small, medium, and large scale businesses. We need investment partner. We need direct foreign investment, as well as now we have the inter-Africa trade. We want to be able to trade some commodities across Africa and beyond the Atlantic. And so fixing our economy to work for the Liberian people is critical. We are importing more goods than we're exporting. We want to make sure we level that with regards to exporting goods for sale, but not our natural resources. We want
Mm-hmm.
to make sure we keep some of our natural resources to be processed within Liberia before we export it outside. So that would help create some jobs for local Liberians.
Mm-hmm.
When we work on the economy, we get people working. The rest of it is easy. We need to fix our healthcare system. Our healthcare system currently does not, it almost doesn't exist. We cannot rely on the medical institutions. The healthcare centers does not perform for the Liberian people.
Mm-hmm.
Most people with resources go outside of Liberia to seek medical attention. And the Liberians who cannot afford to fly out for medical attention, they don't have access to adequate health care. Mind you, affordable health care. We have
Mm-hmm.
got to make sure we have trained doctors, trained nurses, and trained medical practitioners in the hospitals and in the clinics. We have to make sure we have the right drugs. We have
Mm-hmm.
to make sure our doctors, lawyers, and medical practitioners are paid on time. We also have to work massively on our education system. Our
Yes.
education system is failing our young people across the board, and we got to do something about that. If we expect Liberia to move forward into the 21st century, we have got to start by educating our young people so that they can meet the challenges of the competition out there. Not necessarily to
Mm-hmm.
go out, but those who are coming to trade with us, those who are coming to invest with us. We want to make sure our young people are capable, they're ready, and they can be part of the job market. And any job that's being offered, Liberians should be ready. They should be educated, trained, and ready to take on those jobs instead of bringing foreigners to work within our country. We're not opposing to having foreigners come to work in Liberia, but Liberians must be part of the job market.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are some of the things I want to work on in
Mm-hmm.
terms of fixing the economy, making sure our health system works for Liberian people, and making sure our young people are educated. If
Mm-hmm.
we can tackle those three items, I think we'll have a better shot at a better nation.
Mhm. Let's talk about more the economy. You have been making a good point. You talk about make economy, the healthcare, education, helping the youth. That's something really the Liberian people need from you or from someone else, especially as a leader. So I would like you to give us a few reasons why the Liberian people will vote for you and how that will impact their living condition life, how that will change their life.
Well, the Liberian people have tried many things. They have tried so many other individuals, and they still have not really come to a place where they feel satisfied. And I think now it's time to try. I've been on the political scene now for quite some time, and I've been preaching the same message to the Liberian people. It is time to number one. I don't want to say vote for a woman, but I think we just. I'm sorry to say, but we have a better way of looking at the needs of everyone before our own needs. And I think that's the first thing you want to look for in a leader, someone who will be willing to serve the people versus being an imperial leader where the people are serving them and giving them everything they own. I've been serving Liberia for many years. Since 2005, I built a foundation that has been channeling resources to Liberia. Yes, that's not enough to get the whole nation to vote for someone because they built a foundation.
Mhm.
But my conversation is pretty much about the attitude of service to the nation, the attitude of serving the people, and that is what our constitution says the leader should be.
mhm,
The leader is there to work at the will and pleasure of the people, not the other way around. And so that's one concept that I grasp already, understanding that leaders are there to serve the nation and the needs of the people. So, meaning we have to go out and find adequate investment opportunities to bring partners to our markets so that we can entice more companies to come and invest with us or in us.
mhm,
So our people can have the benefit of having a job and have money in their pocket to take care of themselves and their families, because that's what everyone really wants.
mhm,
I bring a lot of different views. I bring a lot of contacts, international contacts to the table, meaning that I have people across the world who will be willing to come to our aid whenever we're in need. Liberia is back in a humanitarian crisis,
mhm,
and you want a leader who can call on people across the world to come to their aid. And so I think I bring a lot to the table for Liberia. I
mhm,
bring innovation. I bring the idea of technology for the young people
mhm,
across the philanthropy sector. There's a lot of talk about getting the young people of Africa back on the farm. But
mhm.
I tell you, I know the young people of Africa. The young people are up to 60% of the population, but the idea of getting them back on the farm makes sense. But the young people are not going to do what our grandparents did
Mhm,
by going in the hot sun and
mhm,
working all day long with manual tools.
mhm.
If we can combine technology with the concept of agriculture, I think that's the only way we can get more young people on the farm to
Yes.
grow what we eat and eat what we grow. We have to be innovative. If we leave innovation out, there's no way we're going to get the attention of the young people. And they
Mhm,
are the vast majority of the population. If they're not busy doing something productive, they'll be busy doing something unproductive. And my
mhm.
idea is to keep the young people doing things that are productive for the nation. I know you
Yes.
wanted to say
Okay.
something, so
Let's
I'm going to
talk
stop
about
here for a minute and let you interject.
Okay, let's talk about agriculture. Something really interesting. I'm glad that you mentioned agriculture because especially the young people they see agriculture as something they don't want to do. But if you look at it exactly, the most of the countries who's getting much better is because they have been investing in agriculture. So how do you intend to invest in agriculture and especially convince the young people in
Yes.
agriculture sector?
Combine agriculture with technology, excuse me. You have to combine the
Mhm,
idea of creating space to grow new products. Number one, invest in products that we consume as a nation. Liberian eats a lot of their natural greens, their natural, the palm, the cassavas, and what have you. We have to invest in growing those products so we're not importing them. We spend about 200 million annually importing rice into our country. Rice that's grown in some part of Asia and it's brought to Liberia. We spend 200 million. We cannot switch the situation overnight. But if we can start little by little investing in the agriculture sector, meaning I spoke to the previous minister of agriculture, and he told me his annual budget was 2.5 million. Now that is way too small to make anything happen.
mhm,
2.5 million is nothing. We need to increase those numbers. We need to invest in agriculture and technology, and get the young people. Young people are interested in technology. They want to
mhm,
push buttons. They want to operate machines. They can grow a whole farm if they're given machineries to do so. And
mhm,
so my idea for investing in agriculture is not $2.5 million. It
mhm,
has to be more than that. It has to be half of the 200 million we are investing in importing rice that we can also grow in Liberia.
mhm,
There are many local Liberian farmers who are working under the hot sun, trying to grow rice, but they're doing this on a small scale. If we can grow an agricultural investment bank or agricultural bank in Liberia that will give farmers some incentive in terms of loans
mhm,
to create their business, scale up, and produce local goods that can be sold on the market, it will help reduce prices, especially with regards to oil prices going up where things has to be brought in. It makes imported goods rather expensive.
mhm,
Now, the next thing we have to do in the agriculture sector, besides combining it with technology, grow local products. We have to grow products that Liberia can export, not products for consumption locally, but products for exportation. And we have a beautiful country, two weathers, meaning a dry season and a rainy season. They're products that grows primarily in the dry season, and they're products that grows in a dry season. So we can grow during the rain season. We can grow during the dry season. We have to import. I'm sorry. We have to export those products so that it can increase our current GDP, which is about 4 billion. Our GDP has not moved in a few years. That is because we're not providing, we're not creating any products locally. We're not exporting, and we're not providing services. And so agriculture is the number one industry I think we have to invest in. Also fishery, as well as tourism, ecotourism, because I talked about the two weathers, the dry and the rain season. It rains for 6 months. It is dry for 6 months. We can utilize the 6 months of dry weather to get because we have a beautiful beachfront from one end of the country to the other end, the western side to the eastern side is all Atlantic Ocean. So I think investing in agriculture, as I said, growing products that we eat, and also grow products for exportation would increase our GDP massively.
Good. Let's talk
And
about.
investing in tourism, as well as, yes, go ahead, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
No, I think I was just landing in terms of investing in agriculture, tourism, and fishery. Fishery is also another, which we like to call aquaculture. It's part of the agricultural sector. It's also worth the investment.
Good. Let's talk about women in general in Africa. Something really I know that you have been talking about that since we started the interview. Something I know that's mean a lot to you. You are fighting for everybody, but in the other hand, you are fighting for women too, because we know that women and men are different, especially in Africa. They are a little bit different. So, what analysis do you have regarding women leadership in Africa, and do you think they should engage more?
Well, absolutely. We're living in 2021, and I posted something on social media maybe a few days ago, where my post was just out of mere frustration that it's sort of a brain drain. I'm quoting myself here. It's a brain drain to keep explaining why it's important to include women in decision making arenas of all sectors. It is very important to include women. This idea that men have all the answer to the world's problem is merely a notion. It's not. It's a notion. Um, and I think we've proven that notion. That women have also a lot to contribute to the global economy. Women have a lot to contribute to innovation across the board. Women has a different view on the same issue that a man might have one view, a woman might have an absolutely different view. And women's view is generally is pushed by the conviction of concern for everyone. A woman is always concerned about everyone's needs over her own. And I think we want inclusivity at this moment in the world. As you can see, the United States, what just happened, they just had an election. They had a previous government who was very concerned
Yes.
about was very nationalistic. But
Mhm.
there was a push from half the population that says America is a diverse nation, and we want to keep it that way. And there's an opposing view that says we want to keep it only for the area and race. And so there was a clashing view. And as you can see, it goes back and forth. But the reality is we want inclusion, inclusion, inclusion. And I think women come to the table with the idea of inclusion, how to find solutions to everyone's problem. What are your green, white, yellow, brown, or what have you? What are you, a man or a woman, or a child, or an adult, or elderly? Women think about everyone. And so in a quest for worlds, for inclusion in the world today, I think women has to have the opinion in every aspect of what the world is trying to accomplish. And again, this is not to put men down. Don't get me wrong. I think men have ran the show for quite some time. My country alone is about 170 years of independence, 170 plus years of independence. We were never colonized by any colonial powers. We have been an independent nation since the beginning of time. We just happened to have declared ourselves an independent nation in 1847 when we wrote our Constitution. And
mhm,
so Liberia is the first independent country on the continent of Africa. Now, in
mhm,
170 plus years, 72 years, 73 years, we've had one female head of state that ran for 12 years. She ran the country for 12 years. The country was peaceful. Everyone was cared for. You know, she was a mother, a proper mother to the nation. Besides her being a head of state, and so my fight to get to include women is important because that is what the new world order is calling for: inclusion, not exclusivity, but inclusion. So we want
mhm,
we want governance system that's inclusive of both women, the men, people living with disability and different orientation. We have to start respecting the rights of everyone, and that comes into play with my human rights advocacy cap. I fight for the rights of everyone to be included, to be heard, to have their opinion voiced, and their needs voiced at the decision making table. And if
mhm,
you only have a bunch of old men sitting across the table, they will
mhm,
most likely talk about things that's relevant to old men. They will
mhm,
not talk about things relevant to the young men, to the young women, to the elderly. They will only talk about their interests because that's how they are built. They're built to think about themselves for themselves. And so it is important to make sure when there are 10 seats on any board, those five of those seats should be occupied by women or a female, a youthful person, a person who has different orientation and disability.
mhm.
It is very important that we respect the human rights of all people to include all people at the decision making table. So
Mhm.
the fight for women is the fight for a better world.
Good. Good. Let's talk about little girls, young girls, because we know that between young girls and young boys, the system education is really different. If you look at the statistic, you will see, for example, you will see in 90%, like 20% of young girls is in school, and the rest of the young boys they are in school. So how do you going to change that in Liberia to make sure the young girls have the same percentage as a young boys in school?
Absolutely. Administration, I will pass a law to make sure no child is left out of the education system. Education will become mandatory under my administration. That means no child can be left at home, whether has a domestic servant or but as long as a child is below 18 years of age and between the age of 5 years or 6 years old, there must be in the education sector from a certain hour in the morning to a certain hour in the afternoon.
Mhm.
So all child will be required to be in the education sector. No child will be left at home. No child will be required to be in an academic setting doing giving was that there are two books that governs our individual life. Sometimes it's one or sometimes it's two. But the first book that governs our lives is it's everyone has a citizenship, and within that citizen, in that citizen's rights, that citizen comes from a country, and every nation has its own constitution. And so the first book that governs our lives is the Constitution. And so if a child is left out of the education system, whether it's a girl or a boy, that child will not be able to understand the laws of the land as well as their rights and what the nation is supposed to do for them and what to expect of the leadership and their government or the governance system. So yes, that when I say everyone, it includes girls as well. And
Mhm.
and and also I will make sure I put it laws. We will make sure I put it into law protection of our young girls. Our young girls are being abused sexually, mentally, physically. We have to stop the abuse of women and girls, especially our young girls. First, they will be required to go to school just like their brothers. No parents should have the right to leave a child out of the schoolhouse, not because of tradition or religion. Every child must be in the education sector, in a schoolhouse. And so those are some of the things I'm going to do. And again, the second book of our lives, which is the Bible or the Quran, you
Mhm.
must be educated to be able to read the Quran or the Bible. And so leaving a child out of the education system
mhm,
prevents a child from understanding their religious book or being able to read their religious book.
mhm,
So we want to make sure we reduce the number of uneducated people in our society because everyone must be prepared to participate in the global economy. And if
mhm.
you're not educated, it's going to be rather difficult to understand the rules of your own land, the rules of your own religion, and the global rules, as we are, I must say, the global rules. So for the girls, everything I do, of course, will include young girls' protection, young girls' access to education, and protection of our young girls.
Good. Let's talk about the government right now. We know that the president has been in power since 2018, if I'm not wrong, and is 3 years so far, if I'm not wrong. So, in your knowledge, do
That's right.
you think that the president Weah has fulfilled his promises, and how do you see his presidency?
Well, you're absolutely right. This government came in 2018. There was so much hope built around this Weah's being elected into the presidency. There was a lot of hope for the young people of Liberia. The young people went to the polls in their numbers and said, "This is the guy we want."
Mm-hmm,
And I think his story was what sold the young people. Slums of Liberia, Gibraltar to be exact, and going across the world and gaining international superstardom by playing football internationally. Every young person in Liberia had a hope, a similar hope, and they thought by making him a president,
mm-hmm,
that hope will become a reality in their own lives.
mm-hmm,
And again, I will say this, and so when President Weah became elected, the expectation were pretty high. The
mm-hmm,
young people were waiting eagerly to see how he was going to transform this country to finally make this country that has worked for the educated few for so many years. You now have a true son of Liberia, as he is called,
mm-hmm.
that was going to seek out the best interests or make this nation finally work for those who are the underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I would say it's been 3 years, and those dreams have not become a reality. I think, if anything, it has become quite a disappointment to a lot of young people.
Mm-hmm.
The young people is not himself. We just went through a senatorial midterm election, and I will say this much.
Mm-hmm.
The ruling establishment put out 15 candidates, and only 3 out of 15 won their seats because the young people of Liberia sent a clear message to the Weah-led administration that they are quite disappointed in their performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say I'm disappointed in their performance, but I'm an opposition. And so it will be seen like the opposition is constantly criticizing. But the young people went to the polls, the women went to the polls, and it showed their lack of interest in this administration by not voting for the candidates that came from the ruling establishment, which is the Weah's political party.
Mm-hmm.
This administration has been a massive failure to the Liberian people. And whether it's coming from the entourage or the cronies of Weah himself, but they have been a massive failure to Liberia because they came in with no plan, and 3 years later there is absolutely no plan to move this country forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so the young people are they're pretty much giving up. They're looking forward to the next administration that's going to come in, and hopefully that next administration will have something better to offer than this current administration is offering.
Let's talk about the economy. I know that you already talk about the economy, but regarding the information in Liberia, the economy is collapsing. It's not going the right way. Especially since President Weah come to the power in 3 years, the economy has been collapsing. And I think so. Even before yesterday, he just signed Executive Order 103 regarding the economy to boost up the economy. So can we say that the Liberian economy is collapsing? And how do you intend to change that in case if you became the president?
Well, it's simple. We do what's needed to be done. Number one, we have to have a plan. One of the things I complain about this administration is that they do not have a plan on anything. And it's almost impossible to be able to even steer your team in the right direction without a plan. They don't have an economic plan. They don't have plans for any area of what's supposed to have a plan. And so my administration, the first thing we're going to come in is with an economic plan. We talk to the experts on the economy. We talk to everyone. You have the IMF in Liberia. You want to talk to all the experts. Bring in the counter opinions, and let's see how we can draft a plan that works for Liberia.
Mhm.
We are a small but wealthy nation with rich in resources, but we have been heavily relying on the sale of our commodities such as our iron ore, our other minerals like gold, diamond. And when the world market is demand, or when the world's demand for these items on the market depreciates, we take a hit in our economy. And so we have to diversify the economy by investing in alternative sectors. I've said that throughout my campaign during the presidency, 2017 presidential election, and I will say it today because it still remains true. Investing in alternative sectors like agriculture, fishery, tourism. Those are the sectors we have to invest in. Again, the young people on the farm with the combination of technology and agriculture, which I talked about early on.
Mhm.
We have to host and attend every investment conferences or forums across Liberia. We need to attract
Mhm.
investors to Liberia. I mean, interface through a technological means. And we can now, there are a series of Zoom calls to sell Liberia, get banking sector, your health, your education sector. There has to be a plan in every area.
Mhm.
This is ABC politics, and I'm surprised that these guys came into power and they have not understood that. And I don't mean to be an opposition that just challenge everything they do, but the economy is suffering a ripple effect of all of the resources that has been missing from our economy. There was $16 billion missing. Two stimulus package that's supposed to stimulate our economy missing.
Yeah.
MIA. You cannot have these amount of dollars missing without a trace and expect the economy to continue to move in the right direction.
Mhm.
So there are several things we must do. My administration will see to it that we consult with the experts, we get also opposing views, and create an economic plan that works for Liberia.
Good.
Not one size fit all because it worked in this country, this country. We need a plan that works for Liberia's market size.
Mhm.
We need to talk to investors across the world, give them incentives to come to Liberia to see what we have available for them to invest in.
Mhm.
And this will also help build our infrastructure. When companies come in, they will help us build our infrastructure. And so for me, it's easy. It's easy as getting the experts on this subject to assist me where I don't have the expertise. Even as a leader, we are not always, you know, so adverse in certain things. We have to get experts' advice.
Mhm. Good. Let's talk about corruption. Something really interesting, especially in Africa. The most of the countries in Africa, the corruption is another level. But according to the information again, Liberia, the corruption
Yeah.
is going another level. So how do you intend to fight corruption in your administration? And what is the strategy you will definitely going to put in place against that?
Well, we're currently surviving on a 450 $1 million national operating budget. 450 million, that's not much. And if you could appropriate $450 million in the right direction, allocated to the right industries and agencies, make sure whatever amount of dollars that's earmarked goes to the particular area that is earmarked for. And those items must be executed, or the agenda must be executed. Now, anything short of that is easily traceable. If you appropriate or allocate $60 million for the education sector, you have to be able to trade $60 million in the education sector. If you earmark and allocate $20 million or $30 million in the agriculture sector, you should be able to see the results. Checks and balances must be put in place. If anyone within the chain of those different earmarks or those different areas, if things are not being done, as a leader, it is your job to check and double check, and sometimes, oftentimes, triple check to see what your administration or your team is doing. Corruption happens when a leader turns blind eyes and pretend that you're just going to trust someone's word and say, did you do this? Yes. And you don't go and put, we call it SOS, security on security.
Mhm.
Have people who will audit. Have someone who will audit and make sure $60 million allocated for education goes to education, and it is actually put to work within the education sector. You will see results. And so for me, how to fight corruption, you show good example. If funds that are earmarked for our agencies, our sectors, our industries are not going to the sectors and industries, you have to show a very good example so no one thinks they can get away um, with taking national resources for their own gains.
Mhm.
We are
You,
not going to establish a culture of impunity. You must show example by punishing individuals who take out of the cookie jar.
mhm. Good. Let's talk about. I know that you have been talking about the challenges and then the issues and some solution, but let's talk about exactly what's going on right now. What are the challenges that face Liberia right now, and what are the solutions you will definitely going to suggest the Liberian government or in your administration, like right now in Liberia?
Well, there are so many problems in Liberia at the moment. You have the economic problem, which is, as you mentioned early on, the economy is not doing very well. There's a major shortage of resources in our banking system. When you go to the bank to get money, there's absolutely no cash available.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are a series of problems. We oftentimes do not have access to water, simple thing like water, because employees of the water and sewer company are not being paid. I read in the papers the other day that our electric company is being illegally managed by a firm. I'm not sure exactly. The contract was over, and the firm is still there managing without a contract. There are all these loopholes, and there has to be a way to close these loopholes. But I'm not sure. I don't have the confidence that this current administration has the know-how to close up those loopholes. And so those loopholes are going to be left there, and our economy is going to suffer. Things are not going to be done the way in a timely fashion that it should be done. And so there are a series of problems across Liberia. We have a 6-year term. We have to wait for another 3 years before we can find a solution to what's happening. Because even if you reshuffle this current government, there aren't enough experts. You have a lot of friends appointed to positions of leadership. And oftentimes, friends cannot cut it. If the friend does not have the expertise, you got to remove them and put someone in who has the expertise and the know-how to run those agencies. It is very important that the president today stop seeking the interest of his friends that do not have the expertise and the know-how to run our agencies. They need to be fired, removed, and put people there who can actually do what they're supposed to be doing within those agencies. You have individuals going out. There's a common example, and this is, I don't want to get petty with it. You have individuals going out to represent our government on an international scene who's wearing a big gold watch. And it looks like one of those hip hop rappers to me. I don't think our foreign minister should be wearing such a big gold watch to
Mm-hmm.
go and negotiate deals, especially when he was at the United Nations. You are asking for aid for a country that you claim is so poor, but yet still you're dripping in extreme jewelry that's probably more expensive than anything the person you're asking for aid from is wearing on his or her body. Now, that is a clownish thing to do. And I think President Weah, although he's a really, I would like to say, a wonderful person, but needs to start showing leadership by stop appointing friends and people that he likes into position of power and start looking at people with experts or expertise to execute a job of the Republic of Liberia.
Mhm.
We have 3 years to go, and we want to see this leadership take action. So the problems of Liberia is endless,
Good.
but we want to see this government, this leadership put some action in place by taking some serious decisions on putting people into as head of our agencies who have the expertise to run out the affairs of our country.
Okay, good. Just let's say that you are working with the president right now. You are close to him. So, what is the solution you're going to suggest to him right now?
Sometimes it's hard to let go of your friends because you are more interested in their well-being. But the people of Liberia did not vote for President Weah because of his friends. The young people, as I mentioned early on, went to the polls to vote for President Weah because they had this hope that he was going to deliver on his promise to them. He was going to bring about change. He was going to create a Liberia and a leadership that was going to be inclusive, that was going to give young people the opportunity they need. And they're not seeing that today. So my advice will be get rid of the friends out of your administration and put in the experts to deliver on your promise to the young people. That is what I would say to the president.
Good. We are about to end this interview. What, and if you would like to add something to the audience or to the people who is watching this interview, especially the people who see you as the next president, what would you like to say to them?
Well, I'm going to do, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me on your show today. It's always wonderful to have these conversations. It is important to talk about the national issues facing the lives of our people, which range from healthcare to education. And a big one on the ticket is the economy. There are no jobs for Liberian people, and it seems like there's no hope anywhere. But I just want to remind the Liberian people that there is hope. We had this belief that this administration was going to deliver on those promises that they've held for such a long time. But every day, the Liberian people find themselves being left out of the equation. So the change that was presented by President Weah and his administration has not been delivered on. But real change can happen if we, the Liberian people, go to the polls and vote for not someone because of popularity, but someone who has a plan, someone who's willing to take executive action to put the right experts into leadership to run our agencies of Liberia, to make sure our children are in school, to make sure we have an adequate healthcare system, creating jobs, giving investors some incentives to come to our country to invest. I know I can do that for Liberia. I know I've been saying this from day one. I will continue to say it, that this is not all about talk. This is about action. It's about action. It's about an inclusive governance system that will get women, our young men, our disabled, our people living with different orientation, as well as our men into the job market. We need to put Liberia to work so that they can have money in their pockets to take care of themselves and their families. I don't think any Liberia person is looking for a handout. I think all Liberians are just looking for an opportunity, and MacDella Cooper wants to present that opportunity to Liberian people. So Amadou, again, I want to thank you so much for having me on your show, and it's always great to have these conversations.
Thank you so much for joining me this weekend on African View Deba. So much for joining me this weekend on African View Deba. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, so you will never miss a show again. Thank you. See you.